Hi YouTube, so today I'm going to be telling my birth story, well, part one of my birth story for my first child. Please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe and stay tuned. But if you're having a baby or you're like, you don't want to hear about things that go wrong or you're going to be triggered by this, please go ahead and exit now because my birth stories with both of my children were very tough and kind of traumatic, especially the second one. So if you don't want to hear that or you don't want to be nervous or anything like that, go ahead and please exit this video. All right, so let's start. So my first child. So me and my husband, we got married in 2018. We were both still in college. So let's fast forward to 2019, and around November, we were graduating actually at the beginning of December. So in November, I ended up getting pregnant, but I didn't know really, we were trying to get pregnant, but I didn't really know about it until the beginning of December, right around graduation time. So it's December of 2019. I'm super excited. I go ahead and I get an internship at a accounting firm because I have 2 degrees in accounting, but at that time I only had 1 degree in accounting. So I go ahead and I get the job, and then I find out that I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh no, like, are they gonna still take me? It was just an internship, so it was like a short-term thing. It ended in April. So I talked to them and they were like, yes, they would still take me. So I announced it at our graduation party. Everything goes great. First 3 months of 2020, we're all good. Everything's fine. I'm going to the appointments. The accounting firm was super awesome and accommodating. So then March of 2020 comes, and we all know what happens in March of 2020, COVID. So with COVID, a lot of things changed. So I couldn't have my husband actually come into the appointments. So he actually missed like pretty much all, except for like maybe 2 appointments for my daughter. He would have to wait for me in the car and I would have to FaceTime him in, even on like the anatomy scans and everything. So in February, we found out that we're having a girl. We're both really excited. And so the whole pregnancy, like I said, he wasn't really allowed to come with me. So the birth was coming up. My daughter was born in July of 2020. So leading up, I was swearing she was going to come early. I was really hoping for it. Then around like the 39, 40 week mark, I started like looking into things to like help out online, and I found the midwife's brew, which I would not recommend it. Definitely not, especially the castor oil portion. I would definitely not do that ever again if I was well, I did have another baby and I did not do that ever again. So I took the midwife's brew. It made me really sick and the baby still didn't come. So it was really all for nothing. I was just sick for no reason, basically. So 40 weeks comes and I was seeing a nurse practitioner and a doctor, but most of my visits were with the nurse practitioners. So she was like, well, it's getting kind of late. I was 3 centimeters dilated for like the last 3 weeks. She was like, it's getting kind of late. Like, do you want to go ahead and schedule an induction? I was like, what's an induction? So she explains to me the induction where they start my labor with Pitocin and everything. And I was like, I don't like needles, but I want this baby out of me. My whole pregnancy was great until like the last month. So by that time, I was very much so ready to get the baby out. So she goes ahead and schedules me for an induction. So the morning of the induction, I think we had to be at the hospital at like 5 in the morning or something outrageous. And we had our baby in Savannah, Georgia. So, it's not really the nicest. It's not the worst place, but it wasn't the nicest place. Um, so 5 o'clock in the morning, we had to show up to the hospital. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to eat once I started labor, so I went ahead and I had a pretty big breakfast. I had like bacon, some fruit, and all that kind of stuff. So we show up and we start the intake process. Now, foreshadowing, both of my intake processes go very, very wrong from the beginning. I should have never, ever gotten induction. So basically, we started off, and the lady goes and she's going to give me the IVs just to start the fluids. So she tries it and she's like, oh, I can't get it. So she calls in another nurse. She tries it. She's like, oh, I can't get it. I'm like, what do you mean? So then they get a male nurse and he comes in and he's able to do it no problem. So I had like already 3 stabs in my arm. But then, okay, so then after that, my nurse, my like main attending nurse, and a training nurse come in. And the training nurse actually was going to the same university I was going to. So I was like really happy. And I was like, okay, anything she needs to do, I'll let her try it. And so she could learn, because she was trying to learn how to be a labor and delivery nurse. So I was like, okay, no problem. So they come in and they're talking to me, asking me the basic questions. Then they go ahead and start me on the medicine. So they start me on the Pitocin. And at first, it wasn't really working. So my doctor comes in and she checks and she's like, nothing's happening. So, of course, they start flipping you all around. They have the little, she pulled out a peanut pillow. We're trying that. It's like a giant like exercise ball, but it's shaped kind of like a hourglass situation. They call it, it looked like a peanut. It's shaped like a peanut, so they call it a peanut pillow. So she goes ahead and she puts that in between my legs, and they start turning me and all that kind of stuff. So then it starts working too well. Hi YouTube, so future me here. What I meant to say when I said that the Pitocin started working too well was that it actually started bringing in my contractions really, really close, and my baby was getting stressed and her heart rate was going way, way up. So then she has to come back in and turn down the Pitocin. So I was in labor with my daughter for 24 hours, almost 25. So that was like the whole first 12 hours was just that. I wasn't really in a lot of pain. I just could feel some contractions. So then it comes to the point where she pops my water. So she pops my water, and in the water, she sees meconium, which is basically like your baby's first poop. But since I had taken that castor oil, my daughter had went ahead and pooped inside of me, which is a problem because when they come out and they breathe, they could aspirate on the meconium. So she goes ahead and notices that, and so she's like, okay, for your delivery, luckily I was in a good hospital. It had like the biggest NICU in the area. So she's like, for your daughter, when she's born, we're gonna have a whole bunch of nurses in here, a whole bunch of doctors from the NICU unit. Don't worry about it. It's not gonna be a problem. But when she comes out, we're not gonna make her cry. We're gonna let her just kind of, you know, chill for a second until we can take a suction bulb and suction the meconium out of her lungs, and then we will make her cry. So don't be concerned if you don't hear her crying. So it's like, okay, so that's already like worrisome, right? So then it's time to go ahead and change the IV. So they changed my IV, and they just like unscrew, they don't take the whole thing out, they just unscrew the one part and they plug in the new medicine, and it starts to burn. Like, it literally felt like my veins were on fire. Like, it was really bad, and I'm complaining. I'm like, it's burning. Then I looked down, and before I was an accounting major, I was actually a chemistry major. So and I've also taken a lot of classes, so I know that air is not supposed to go in the IV. So when she does it, I believe the training nurse actually did it. And when she did it, I seen all the air. And I said to her, I said, there's too much air in there. She's like, no, it's fine. So then her, like the supervising nurse over her comes and she looks and she's like, you see that little thing? It catches the air. And I was like, it's too much air. It's burning. So she goes ahead and she undoes it and lets some more liquid in and lets the air out. And it feels better. But that whole sensation, like, basically just had me already kind of like anxious. So next we get the epidural. So we come in, the anesthesiologist comes in. She goes ahead and she explains everything and she does the epidural. Actually, I believe it was a guy the first time. So I think he went ahead and did it, and he couldn't do it. So he had to call the manager, which was a lady, and she came in and she was able to do it. However, it wasn't working. Like, I didn't feel any epidural, which is very problematic and very painful. So we went ahead and I still couldn't feel it. So then there started being problems with my daughter on the monitor. I was also in a lot of pain because my epidural wasn't working. So my nurse had to come, or my doctor came in, and I don't remember really what she did. Like, kind of this whole experience is kind of like a blur, but basically, she had to like kind of undo something that she had done by sticking, I think it was a balloon. Okay, so my cervix wasn't opening, so she stuck the balloon in and she blew up the balloon in my cervix. First, before she did that, sorry, backtrack. Before she did that, the head nurse came in, like my nurse came in, and she was like, I'm gonna check your dilation. I'm like, okay. So she goes ahead and she checks it, and she's like, I think I was probably at like a 6 or a 7. She's like, you're at a 6 or a 7, and it's been a really long time. Like, I think at that point it had been 24 hours exactly. She's like, it's been a really long time. And basically, like, we can't keep giving you this medicine. So she checks, and then she lets the training nurse is like, would you mind if I also check, because she has to learn? I'm like, okay. So I let her check. It was the most painful thing I've ever done in my life. That was so much pain. That was worse than any contraction I felt. Like, I don't know what she was doing. And she's like, I don't know how many centimeters she is. She's like, well, keep feeling until you know. I'm like, I'm an actual person. Hello, it's me. I'm a person. I am not a mannequin. So she pretty much guesses or whatever. And so basically I wasn't far enough. So then they call the anesthesiologist lady back, and she, like I said, she had tried it, and so she couldn't, I wasn't feeling anything. So she comes in with like this needle, and she's like, basically, this is all I can give you. So she gives me the shot of whatever in my back. Then my doctor comes in and she starts with the balloon. She's like, okay, you're not dilating fast enough. We're going to try this balloon and see what happens. So she takes the balloon, she sticks it in, she blows it up, and immediately she's like, oh no. I'm like, what? Like, oh no is not what we want to hear right now. You know, like, we do not need to hear oh no. So she's like, oh no. I'm like, okay. She's like, we need to let the water out of this balloon right now. So she starts draining water. She's like, go get the team. Go get them right now. Go ahead, call it in. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, as soon as I put the water in the balloon, you immediately dilate it to 10, and here's your baby's head right here. So I start freaking out, okay? Like, she's like, go ahead, you can even stick your hand down there and feel the hair. So I do it, I feel hair, and I'm like, oh no, this is really happening. Like, I knew it was happening, but I did not know that it was going to happen like this. And by that time, the lady, the epidural that she gave me, the extra stuff, it did not kick in yet, because we were not expecting that to happen. So all the doctors come rushing in, and she pulls the balloon out and she tells me to push. But I don't know. I don't know if it was really painful and I was in shock. So I'm pushing, and my daughter's head comes out and her face is blue, and the cord is wrapped tightly around her neck, and she wasn't breathing. So she's like, you need to push really, really hard. And I'm like, I don't think I can. Just go ahead and give me a C-section. She's like, no, we're past that. It's already happening. We can't put her back in, basically. Like, there's no C-section. So the nurse, my nurse, she grabs me by my shoulders. She's like, get yourself together. You're gonna do this. You can do this. You can do this. Now push. So she's holding my leg. The training lady's holding one leg. The doctor's holding the leg with my actual nurse that's like trying to get me together. And the training nurse keeps dropping my leg, which is making it 10 times harder. There's all these doctors in watching. So basically, I ended up doing it after that. I pushed really hard, and my daughter comes sliding out. So they grab her, and immediately she screams. So I'm like in shock, basically. I'm like, oh no. Like, she's screaming. She's going to aspirate. We're going to have to take her to the NICU. So they get her and they're able to look in her mouth and her lungs, and actually it wasn't that much. They were able to quickly suction it out and she was perfectly fine. We didn't have to go to the NICU. But would I ever do castor oil again? No, because that was too much of a risk and that was too scary. So I would never recommend that. But my daughter came out, she was happy and healthy, and she was really small and warm, and they put her on my chest. And then we took a minute in there, and I had to do the whole afterbirth thing. And then we went ahead and rolled down to the recovery room. And because it was 2020, my husband was barely allowed in there. We had to do the whole thing with the mask on. And then he was the only person that was allowed up there. So like my mom, anybody, nobody could come in there with me. It was just us, which might have actually been pretty good because I'm kind of like an introvert and a loner, and I just wanted that time with my baby, to like bond with her and get to know her and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was my first birth story. The second one is way more of a wild ride. So go ahead and come back next week for that. I can talk about it now, and like I'm not super scared or anything about it because right now it's 2023, so it's been almost 3 years. But at that moment, it was very terrifying. So yeah, if you are a pregnant mom, I hope your delivery goes well. And please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what you think in the comments. Did you ever take castor oil? Did it go wrong? Would you recommend people take it? I would not. But yeah, let me know. And if you have any birth stories that you want to share, you can share them below too. All right, bye.